I don't know what my. I don't have the agenda. We'll call this meeting to order.
LeBlanc,
Present.
Pinkley, Fenton,
Here.
Denham, Yancey,
Here.
Williams, Stepp,
Here.
Milton.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Yeah. We need to approve the Finance Committee minutes from March 30th. We'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. And we're going to approve the disbursements in excess of $50,000. Has everybody had a chance to review those?
And you're going to have, these are going to start getting bigger and bigger all the time because of the sheer number of capital projects coming through this summer. So I noticed on this one, there's quite a few projects in here. So you're going to see quite a bit more of this. And then for that matter, contemplate maybe even bringing back kind of a capital overview using the current system we have out on the website. And
Yes.
just kind of walking through it. Michael's not here, so I'm going to volunteer him to do that in the next time we do this.
All in favor of Michael doing this at the
There
next
you
meeting?
go, 'cause there you go, Cheryl's taking notes. You just got voluntold to do it. But they're doing them and Kendall's doing some great stuff, so.
With Michael not here, is there anything else
That
we?
ballpark's usage, like what does that kind of entail?
The which one?
The ballpark's
Oh.
use agreement?
That's the regular transfer, isn't it? Yeah, come over the mic.
Oops, sorry.
Yeah, sit over here
Right
for
there
now.
in the corner for now.
You can't hide anymore?
We're trying to involve everybody now.
Exactly.
No man or woman left behind.
A couple of years ago, the ballparks asked for help, and the city of Branson pays $240,000 a year to them. And I think there's an end date to that, but I don't know it off the top of my head.
Yeah, so the city contributes to the ballparks. In exchange, the number of visitors the ballparks brings in significantly increases our revenues. Yeah.
Does that include like when we have tournaments, like the use of the field also? Does that include that?
Not the fee.
Teach you for yeah.
That is just helping their business. Anytime we use them, we actually have to pay them. We actually have a room at the Red Roof where we store stuff, and we pay $700 a month for rent. So, yeah, it doesn't give us anything except for the tax revenue they bring in.
We've been doing this for several years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like you, I do believe there is an expiration on that, but I can't
Yeah,
remember.
we can look at that up and send it back to you. Yeah.
And we'll move that $700 payment. We'll remove it when we get our police station open, right? Because we'll be able to allocate some storage in that building.
That's
That
a good
would be
idea.
probably more Cheryl and Hillary's ballpark, because
Hills on it.
I think that's where our archives are held there.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
Thank you. You good, Ralph?
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to acknowledge, we're not voting on these, right? Acknowledge the amounts over 50,000. Is it 50? Yeah. Or is this March and April?
Second?
We have motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Next on the agenda is our dashboard.
And
Presented by Ben.
we have a trend.
All right.
First trend of the year, and most of my peers think that 2 months of trend, I've gotten burned before on the third month really destroying a trend. We've got 4 months now. On sales tax, it's trending at a fairly good level. We're right now at 5.2% cumulative, 5.2% above last year. We're actually 14% above budget. Now, what's that number entail? That's around $500,000. Conceivably, if we are flat the rest of the year, it's a $1.7 million increase from last year. That's flat for the rest of the year. If we have it's slowing down, the increase is slowing down, but as it slows down and stabilizes, in some years, it's gone up a little bit, because some of your better sales tax months are still coming up. So we do have a trend.
And just a point, we're comparing this with our record last year.
Yeah, absolutely. That's 5% over a very large year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's good news. And for
Is the sales tax, in your opinion, is that just because the cost of everything has gone up?
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons. Just like if you go to a grocery store, the cost of meat's gone up, milk's gone up, but also any kind of entertainment venue, some of those prices have gone up too, just to keep up with inflation. Yeah,
So
so
it may
the-
not be more people coming,
Right.
just that they're having to
Right.
spend more because that's just what the
Right.
economy is right now,
That's right.
right?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
you're dead on.
That's right.
You're dead on there. So when we did the budget, we had I think a 1% increase in sales tax, but that was flat from the previous budget, which was already low. So theoretically, it was a 5% decrease in sales tax for '23. So we could see a fairly sizable chunk coming in the general fund. But as we move forward with the city administrator's budget, we'll be tracking that and bringing it back.
And to elaborate on Pam's point, our increases may not be additional visitors, it may not be they're spending more, it's just because the price of everything. So
Yeah.
on the positive, it reflects in our tax revenue, but our expenses are also going up with
Right.
inflation. Yeah.
Yeah, and we saw, when you go back, we've been able to go back, and when you look at places the districts we've got set up, like 76 CID and some of the other districts, they've had new businesses come in, so you can see their sales tax just jump from one year to the next. And when you open that up, you can see what new business came in and what they've come in at that level. So then you can kind of start trending, what does that look like? So once that jump happened, like we experienced from 21 to 22 and 22 now to 23, it stabilizes off. Once they're in business, now we're getting normal 2-3% increases, which is what we expect to see. Trying to find our new normal, right? So 1.7 ahead of budget. On the public safety arena, it is a little different. We've got a little bit more aggressive sales tax in there, but we're still around $100,000 ahead of budget on sales tax within public safety, and that's for together for both fire and police. So their funds are looking really good. Transportation sales tax is the same way. Now, when we come to tourism tax, we've kind of got a different ballgame. Tourism tax is, in my mind, looking at the history, is extremely volatile. They're discretionary dollars that people spend. And it's a little different that if you don't have the money to fly, you're going to drive. If you're going to drive, where do you go? You don't go out of state. Well, you're going to go to either St. Louis. Why would you go to Kansas City? Go to St. Louis or Branson, right? And we're seeing a lot of people coming to Branson. You ask the chamber, it's the same way. So the sales tax in the last couple of years, as you know, has shot up. When we were talking about budget last fall, the big question is, how long does that last? So we built into the budget a 5% decrease, knowing that tourism tax, 25% of it's marketing, the other part of it's Kindle's slush fund, I mean capital projects fund. I'm just going to talk to Michael about it and see if we can get him included in that too. But no, it's capital, so you can kind of plug and plug in as you need to, as we need to. But a 5% decrease, right now it's around a 3.2% increase. That's an 8% swing from where we were. Conceivably, again, flat out the rest of the year, no growth. We're at a $5.4 million increase over budget. That's new money we didn't budget in the system. So, knowing that, and we kind of talked about that last year, just as a reminder, if we have a surplus like that and we're fairly confident it's going to hit the end of the year, we're going to go back to those guys and start plugging that in. So we're not going to wait on some of this stuff. Obviously, we got to look at the end of the tourism tax. We've got other bond issues and things that come up, and we'll comb through those and see what we can do, like you guys did a couple years ago, paying off debt. If we have that opportunity, then we're going to continue to do it. But if we've got projects that are needing help or emergencies that come up, we've got the money to allocate toward
great.
it. But as we move forward with the budget this year, we're going to kick capital off. In fact, we've already started it for all intents and purposes from a staff point of view. We're going to start with capital and then go into the operating budget. This will be a key fund.
I just want to thank you for putting the descriptions underneath these
Sure.
charts. I know we talked about that.
Yeah.
You know, to make it even more transparent and easier for people to understand what
Understand.
they're looking at on this. So
Yeah.
thank you for doing that.
Well, and if you see things that should be in there, just shoot me an email. We can gladly add those in there. When it comes from just the categories of each of the entertainment venues, if you want to scroll down just a little bit, there we go. I've got the year-to-date in there, amusements, 5.5% decrease. And of course, that changes as the weather gets hotter. But it's still a 74% increase over, I mean, some of these are just astronomical, 74% over 2019, which is, I would almost classify that as the last normal year, but I think 22 is probably our next normal year. But 74% still over 2019. Theaters are 12% and 38% over 2019. This is another one where we talked to a couple of theater owners. This is, really, when they hear that number, they remind me that there's ticket prices have gone up, so you'll see that stabilize. And a lot of that isn't new coming in, it's ticket prices that have gone up. They've made that change. Hotels are pretty much flat. Getting into the Hilton is tough to do because they've got it full a lot of the times. Campgrounds a little bit decreased, but again, hotter weather, we're 118% over what it was in 2019. Nightly rentals are huge, obviously across the nation, but here they're huge. And when I talk to Matt in finance, so we see quite a bit of those come in. And I'm starting to talk to Matt, Mark, and I are starting to talk about short-term rentals and what that looks like. I know that was a big rock we need to turn over last year. It had a lot of worms under it.
Yeah.
So we're starting to kind of weave through some of those. Some of them are going to be a little easier than others to do. I mean, just combing through, making sure we have everything identified. But then once having it identified kind of leads to other issues. And we'll bring that back to Kathy, but we've got a team working on that now.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on that. That rock is so big, it does deserve our time and energy.
Absolutely.
In doing that.
Absolutely. And we're not alone. There's cities all over the U.S. trying to tackle this now from a zoning perspective.
Yeah.
And this is big enough that we'll include Lauber, our city attorney, in that conversation just to see where we need to go with it or what it looks like. Restaurants and concessions, I'm at least 1% of that 10% increase. No, I kid, I don't eat out that much. But it's still a sizable increase, 21% over 2019. We got a lot of places to get to eat here in town. My wife came in with me this week. So I've been forced to actually eat dinner. I had to take her out, she's fantastic. It's been a lot of fun. But these are really great numbers. Amusement's we see that decrease only because it's the summertime coming up. We should see a spike.
Can we look at that? Because that's kind of a seasonal thing too,
It is.
right?
It really is.
I mean, comparing season
It is.
to season.
These increases are
Let's go to the top of
through
that
April
page.
of each year. So it is comparing apples with apples.
Yeah, see on the left-hand side, you can kind of see from month to month, just the average there. The really peak in that top left is July and August. That's where it really comes in. And you can see January, February, March, April. April's kind of a spike because you got spring break in there, but that summertime is really usually.
More families coming out.
Yeah, more families coming in before school lets out. Water utilities charge, the utilities are coming in right on par with what we expect within budget, so that's not unusual. And then go ahead and scroll down to the next page. This, again, this shows just the orange line is almost right on top of that 22. So, and we're still headed in the same direction. It just shows the gap between what we used to have back in 2019 and what we have now. It's still a very, very big number. Go ahead and go to the next page. It shows just the overall revenue and expenses within the fund. There's a surplus, obviously, in the general fund. We don't expect that really to go away because some of the revenues are higher than what we expect. And that's not a bad thing. Having a conservative revenue forecast obviously helps you make decisions later in the year to be able to plug that into operations. Water and sewer will see correct itself later this year, too. This is, I love this chart. The top two charts on here that show the traffic versus revenue, and they kind of trend in the same direction. So one's a leading indicator of the other. And then at the bottom of this is that shows the breakout of the new construction values for the month compared to the prior month. This month, April 23, is 13 million with the other one 3.2. This has been the trend for the last 4 months. We've had construction values just through the roof compared to the prior year.
Ben, can I ask a quick question? So is it accurate, and I don't know if you'll know this, or maybe Mark would know this, but when we're using these, when we're plugging in these numbers, we're basing that on the reported value of a project
Yep.
that an application,
Right.
right? That an
It's an
application
estimated
is in.
value, right?
Yeah, and is it advantageous for an applicant to lowball that number? I'm just asking, right? Because I'm like, is this the real value, or is it 3 times that, right, in
Yeah.
real life? So is that just kind of how it works, that we're solely relying on the reported values from the applicants versus what the project might really be in value?
Yeah, so it could, you're right, it could vary wildly. And only because this is their first blush, and I mean, if I'm out of, tell me if I'm out of turn, but this is their first blush at an estimate on a project. They could have a housing project or an apartment project come in and hit rock that they didn't see there, which could increase the cost of that or the value of that 25%. So this is really their just first blush at that cost. So for me, this is a leading indicator. What type of activities coming into the city, and what does that look like? So in the end, when this is constructed, it'll get evaluated based on third-party evaluations, like the state or the county will come in and evaluate it for tax purposes.
Got it.
Where we do this in other entities is what's the mix that is coming in. So they're highly residential neighborhoods that we'll see just a gob of new residential coming in. Some of them will be a gob of new commercial, but then some of them will have a mix, which you guys have had a mix going through. When existing commercial that's going in, that could be expansions or brand new lines that are coming in for certain venues. So this is more like the chart above it. It's more of a leading indicator.
Kathy, you're spot on. I mean, by design, there's a flaw, because we're asking the developer contractors to estimate the value, and their permit fees are based on what they estimate the value to be. So if I'm looking at a project and I'm thinking it's in the 4 to 6 million range, I'm gonna say maybe 4 million, or 3.5, because it might be less.
Yeah.
Because that's what my fee is based on, right?
But it's up to us to kind of rationalize what that looks like. Build a restaurant for $1, I don't think so. It's gonna be different than that.
What's Verigy, Ben?
What's it?
What's Verigy?
That, I don't know what that is. Do you know what that Verigy is? That was a new one.
Jolene? And have a seat right down here in the corner, please.
Don't go anywhere. I almost didn't have
Don't
time to
say
look that
anything
up.
until you get to the microphone.
I actually called. Okay, can you, I expect myself to project because I'm very loud. Anyway, I did call Anisha to ask her what that was. She said she didn't know, so I Googled that, and it's an energy company. So I don't know what project it is. And Anisha couldn't seem to tell me, but I did Google what that company was, and it was an energy company.
So at our next monthly meeting, we can get explanation on that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's a pretty significant investment.
Stay right there, then you don't have to. Thank you. Thank you, good.
Yeah, we'll look at it. Cash balances across the board look good. Got it right where we need them to be. The general fund, and then the water and sewer fund are the ones that's got obviously the most cash. You look at public safety, I still love the way this looks. The public safety, the police fund, which is the lower left-hand chart that's got 4.18 on it, that money is including the purchase of the building, cash purchase of that building, and it's still a fairly sizable cash amount.
So but when you say that, you're saying that the 4.1 is
That's had
after
that purchase taken out of it.
the
It's still
purchase
that
is
high.
taken out?
Yeah. Yeah, and then fire, just as a reminder, fire is split between the 3.15 and then the one way off to the right. So that cash together is what's gonna fund the fire station 4 that we're about to break ground on. And then on the right, the tourism fund, it's gonna be lower than that. We're just the capital projects, as they roll in, we're gonna be dipping into some of that balance. So that'll stretch out. But at the same time, as we get higher than budget, that'll get in there and stack in there. The point is to really keep a certain balance in there, but use the rest moving forward. I think, is that it? That's the last page? Yep, that's the last page. That's all we've got on the dashboard. I do want to continue to ask you guys if there's something that's burning question in your mind, let me know, and we can add it to this. We've got more than enough data. Eventually, well, I'll talk about it in a minute, but eventually we'll be using a completely different product to give you, and hopefully it'll be the next meeting we do that.
Ben, I did have a question, and I apologize, I didn't take a specific note, and I don't know if it was on the dashboard, but in the bottom left corner of some of those, it had some of your notes.
Yeah,
And actually, it was a public safety or fire. Can you,
the sales tax or the,
there was a footnote in there, and it was almost like a caution that moving forward, that
yeah, one more page.
it was gonna be, now, it must be on the next chart. You had some footnotes that
There it is.
you can go and move on to the next
Okay,
deck.
yeah, okay.
Oh, was this what you were gonna go through and the rest was the detail?
No, this was just, yeah, this was the one that I thought you were going to point out.
So if you would go to the next deck, and pull up the, yeah,
Yeah, that's where I was
so
headed.
if you'd enlarge, yeah. Scroll,
You want to go to police?
hold on right there.
Okay.
Note,
Yeah.
additional funds need to be found in order to fund the personnel and ongoing expenses for this new station. When you say additional funds need to be found, have we found those?
Yes. Yeah, those are found. These are notes that extended from last year.
Okay. Yeah, I saw
Yeah, they
that,
need to be
and I
updated.
thought, well, if we need to put something aside, let's get it set aside.
Yeah.
Where did we find the funds?
For the fire station or police station?
Well, it just
For that
said
note.
additional funds need to be found to fund
Oh,
the
Personnel and ongoing.
personnel and
expenses for this
ongoing
new-
expenses for this new.
Yeah, so that was a note that was a note I know Colby put in for our 5-year forecast. And that was really a reminder for us to maintain that forecast at a fully funded rate and continue to talk to the police department about full staffing. And we did that with the budget process. We went to the chief, and then when Eric came in, went back to him and said, okay, here's everything, all the 45 positions that HR is trying to hire right now. Here's your chunk. Is that going to fund all of the police station? But and Cindy continues to make me aware, there are things that we may not see coming with the police station as it comes online, that we just need to have the funds in the set-aside reserve for. So that 9.4 or whatever cash they end up having left, we may need to pull some of that up into their operating budget as they see it or as they need it.
So I
And
guess
there's
that was-
inevitably, there's something like that gonna happen.
Yeah, so I guess that was the point.
Now, the construction's covered. I mean, once we've got a number,
Yeah.
once we've got that number, we'll be able to bring it back to you guys for a debt issue. But for the operation standpoint, that's really where this note comes in now.
So then, as we continue to update this, maybe that note could be updated to say.
Right.
We've set aside X
Yeah,
in
right.
anticipation, yeah, okay.
Just because when there's that big a project coming in, just like a building, I've seen buildings be built with no expectation of people going in them or no furniture going in them, ever be budgeted, which is kind of insane, because you're gonna put people in there.
It's easier to get approval.
Exactly. An empty building is easier than a full building, yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah, you lose sight of that. Not here, but some people lose sight of it. I've got a community that just built a community center that didn't have any equipment in it. I don't know what they're doing with it, but they got it built. Could you go down to Convention Center? I don't want to make them late to their meeting, but I wanted to point something out. There we go. So go to the top of the revenue, right there. I wanted to point out a couple things. On the Convention Center, they report to us their activity, and then we turn around, finance turns around and puts it into this format. And several things have floated around. Parking revenue was one of them, right? Where does that go into the city? This report sits out on the website, so it's all there. Parking revenue is in there, the 133,000. One of the things I wanted to point out is look at the trend at the top. Food and beverage is really a leading indicator of where they're at activity-wise. They've gone from 2 years ago, 700,000, 760,000. They've over doubled that year-to-date in April, 1.7 million, right? That is a big increase. Not just a big increase, that's a trend increasing from what they've been able to pull off. And we see this when they come back and talk about their quarterly rate. And Sam's going to come back and talk about his capital too, and he'll update you. But what I keep wanting to do is show you this page as he gives his information to you. This is where it comes in and where we track it. So when Jolynn and Cindy and Tracy and I go through these financials, this is what we're looking at as the activity. With the increases in revenue, you're going to see an increase in expenses. So my eye first goes to the revenues, then it goes to the bottom line where you see revenues over, revenues and other sources over or under expenses. In the 193,000 off to the right, the 2021 year to date, all the way to the left, you've got a negative 146,000. Not concerned about that because it's so early in the year. Convention center season's not even here yet, and they're already outpacing what they had last year. And I know I'm going to have to book hotel rooms early this summer because you will get kicked out, just because there's so much going on in there, which is kind of fun to see. But I wanted to point this out to show you that we do have it, and we continue to track it, and it's always out there on the internet. It's actually a really good story. We have this for each one of the funds. Some of the funds, the general fund's obviously in here. Tourism fund, you can track what's going on in there. But by project, it's easier to bring, a summary of the project. Here's where we are on the top projects and what's going on in them. The Michael report that he volunteered for here a few minutes ago. But I want to put it out. Thank you, Sunday.
So the 500,000 that's shown under operating transfer in tourism,
Yeah.
that's what we
That's
give
our contribution to
them,
the
to them.
convention center, right.
And so year-to-date, we've actually given them 167,
Correct.
557.
And that goes over monthly, right? Yeah, we take that and divide it by 12 and send it over there. And I know he's got a couple different math equations he shows up on the board, one with and one without that
Yeah.
contribution.
Yeah.
I think the better point that is brought up for what he's doing is the number of national conventions that are being brought in are fantastic, what you see.
So when the convention center asks for capital improvements, out of our fund balance, it shows a $1.6 million fund balance. Is that where we draw the capital expenses from?
Yeah, they've got 1.2 million in operating in investments, There's 300 and some thousand that's set aside for capital. And when they made their capital improvements last year, that's where it came from. We'll include it as part of it. This year, we're going to include it as part of the CIP. He wants to come back to you, and I don't blame him. He wants to come back and talk about 23 projects.
Yeah.
But we're going to ask him for 24 and 25, what his thought is, so we can include it in the CIP, you get everything.
That's great.
Last year, we were running pretty fast, and that's one of the improvements we're going to do, is make sure that they continue to be in part
And
of
they
the
were
process.
working on, like, they've got contracts for next year and
Oh,
the year after and stuff,
Yep.
so they should have a pretty good idea,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, and you'll see a lot more of Sam. The RFP for the fee proposal consultants have come back, and I know I've got staff reviewing them along with Sam, so those are gonna come back pretty soon. A recommendation will come back pretty soon. You'll see this, you're gonna see a lot more of Sam.
Yeah, and so, my understanding is the RFP has been sent out for the expansion, and they've received the responses.
6 or 7 of them, yeah.
Yeah, which was
Good interest.
more, yeah, which is higher than what we were anticipating,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, oh,
Higher
yeah.
number of responses.
Yeah.
So is that now in the review scoring stage?
Yeah, it is.
And do you have an idea of what that time process is?
That, we hope our review will be done Monday or Tuesday next week. And I think that's midweek is when he was wanting to have his review done. He's going to do it along with somebody over at the hotel.
And then
So there'll be a group of us they'll have that scoring matrix done. Then he and I will bring it back.
okay, so we'll be seeing that here
Yep,
fairly soon.
absolutely.
Mayor,
Chop,
just
chop.
for clarity, pardon me, just for clarity too, this was for who we would choose to do the feasibility study
Right.
on the expansion of
Yes.
the convention, just so the public knows, we're not going to come back with, here's what it's going to cost to expand the convention center.
Yeah, no,
Right,
no,
so
we're
just-
choosing the
Yeah.
firm to do it.
Right,
Yes.
to decide, yeah, to lay out for you all how feasible it is.
And that is a lengthy process. The
Yes.
feasibility study,
Yeah, it
right?
is.
Many months.
Yeah, it is.
Kathy, what did he say yesterday, like 6 months or something like that? He gave a report yesterday.
Yeah, I think I actually missed his report.
Oh, okay. I think he said at least 6 months, and
Yeah.
it could be a little bit.
That's
Yeah,
realistic.
most likely.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And we'll watch that process through, too. I won't. People smarter than me back in Chicago.
If Sam's listening, I would like him to commit to 6 months.
Yeah, it's an
I may have misquoted him, but I know it was a
Or might he
minimum
said
of
less
6
than
months,
6
so,
months.
Yeah, so, not less, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, how long could it take, right? There'll be messages from Sam.
Right. And we're missing 2 of our members today. Tracy reached out to both, so I could sit down separately and talk to them and bring them up to speed by the time we hit June. They're on the same page as the rest of you, because they're going to start drinking from the fire hydrant here pretty soon.
Yeah, well,
One of them,
June 1st is next week.
Oh, that's right, yeah. Well, he's supposed to talk to us next week, yeah.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Oh, my gosh. I don't think February or April, but 2 April existed in my world. Mayor, that's all I've got for the financial overview. I do need to talk about a few other things, but this is really the formal part of
Could we pull up the chart for the tourism tax receipts, the monthly budget?
the one you do.
What caught my eye
Keep going.
was,
That's transportation. Yeah, that's right.
I'm looking at both the monthly and the year-to-date. Actually, let's just start at the year-to-date.
Yep.
It's showing our 2022 actual is 17 million versus our 2023 budget of 12 million.
Right.
And that, I was trying to connect those dots.
So, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. When we set the budget for 2023, we used the budget for 22 because 2021 was an anomaly.
Yes.
I mean, at that level. So knowing that that was one-time event, we went back to what the previous estimate was, which is around 13 million, and then dropped it by 5%, which is what's creating that gap. So what's happening is you've got 16 million that we thought was an anomaly. Well, we treated it as an anomaly, when in reality, 22 came in at higher than what 21 was. So you're showing year to year a trend now. And as we move forward into 23, that trend is continuing. So if we were to do a 24 budget now, it would be obviously more than $12 million. We'd be looking at funding anywhere from $15 to $16 million in revenues coming through for the tourism fund. Because you've got a trend now, and we can dive back into the detail to show why that trend exists.
Can we scroll down to the bottom half of this?
So you can see in 22, breaking it out at the very bottom numbers there, across the categories, where those are coming from. Because so each column represents each one of those different categories.
So I know when 21 we did treat as an anomaly, because I think that was realistic at the time.
Yeah.
22's actual was 17.6.
Yeah.
And our 23 budget is 12.3. $5 million swing.
Yeah, and a 22 budget was 13.4.
Okay. And so are we just being extra conservative?
Yes, I would definitely say it was extra conservative. If, like I said, if we know now, if we knew then what we know now, we would have had a $15 to $16 million number. I was comfortable with being overly conservative because this is probably the easiest one to react to. It's easy to plug in I say that. It's easy to plug in a capital project and assign it to some of this increase. That's not it, because we just need to bring a budget amendment and a contract to you and ready to go.
Okay, yeah, and I'm not suggesting, and I appreciate that. In
We'll-
hindsight's 20/20, right?
Exactly.
So
We'll
like you
reapproach
said,
it different next time.
if we were doing it today, it would have been a much higher number than the 12.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I'm very comfortable with
Yeah.
staying on the conservative side.
Yeah,
It's just that 5 million swing just
yeah, that's quite a
jumped
bit.
out at me on the page.
We like to be closer than that.
Yeah. Okay, well,
I mean, it's
So
not a bad
this-
problem to have. I just like to be closer than what that looks like.
yeah, and from a banking world, I think we're being very conservative on this, and as life goes on, we're also going to find unexpected expenses, right?
Yeah.
Or things that'll happen. And
Absolutely.
So that gives us a
Yeah.
a comfortable buffer.
Yeah, and this is Michael's first year as Public Works, being the director.
This is Michael's mistake?
No, yeah, well, I think that was.
He's not here. We can talk about him.
Yeah, I think he feels the bus coming over him. But Colby was our budget manager, was able to meet with Michael and talk to him at length. It was like a 2-hour conversation about things that he wants to do and approaches he wants to make. And of course, most of his budget's capital, his brain's capital. So I think we need to, knowing what we've got here, we really need to talk to Michael and Kendall again about that 5 million and see what I say 5 million, it's end up being about 4 million after you split it in two.
Yeah.
Because there's $1 million, some that's going to go back over to, for marketing purposes.
Well, thank you for answering that, because as we continue, every month, we're looking at these numbers. And the numbers are just very healthy.
Yeah,
But when we run across things like this, it just gives me just a little bit more comfort of,
Yeah.
well, it's going to help us from overextending,
Right.
right?
right.
Because that's a healthy number in
Right.
our tourism tax. Okay,
Yeah.
did anybody else have any questions? Because what Ben does is Ben provides the overview, the dashboard, but he backs it up with details, right? So because this is what we used to have versus the dashboard. But I think the dashboard gives us a clear, bigger picture, ties everything together.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I've got a staff member that's been taking all of our dashboards across the board and making them easier to read with more language, plain language in them. talk about people that are smarter than you. I'd hand him something and it looks completely different. So he's about to get our dashboard on this side. And expect it to look a lot different. Easier to read,
Yeah.
but it'll look a lot better.
That's great.
I like the pictures.
Yeah, exactly.
See, I have to look
You
at
want
both.
numbers and pictures? I gotta vote
Look
with you.
at both.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Ralph looks at the pictures, pretty
Yeah, right.
pictures, the
Well, I do
dashboard.
too. I like pictures.
Pam and I like to
Want
look
the
at
numbers.
what's making them up, what's
Yeah,
making
yeah.
up the numbers.
That makes sense.
Because I like to continue to deepen that line between my eyes where I,
I had to increase the size of my screen last night. I was reading on my laptop. I couldn't see it. It's getting pathetic. That's all I got for that one. The next meeting, I'd like to request moving our next meeting up to the January 22nd, I believe. It's a
January?
Thursday. June, sorry. January 22nd, 2024 is the next meeting. That's Kathy's suggestion, no. No, I need to move it up a week because I've got a 21-year-old that would shoot me for not helping her move from one end of Springfield to the other.
Oh, nice.
And she's going to be a permanent resident down there. She never wants to move home.
So we'll send out a updated, yeah.
so what date was that?
That's a Thursday, and Tracy will send out an email.
But I'm looking at my.
Oh, yeah,
calendar
right.
now. What's the date? Sorry, what day?
June 22nd is the Thursday, I believe. And it'd be at 10 o'clock if we,
I have Thursday, June 22nd at 10 o'clock.
yeah, that's what I had. I think that's the old calendar, so I don't think it's going to be a problem. It's still on the,
We'll send out the update to you.
Yeah.
We'll get it.
Okay.
9 o'clock works great for me, by the way.
it's up to you guys. I don't care.
Nope, overruled.
Yeah. I figured that was gonna happen.
We could do 8 o'clock.
No, thank you.
If we could get that sent out as soon as possible so that I
Absolutely.
don't.
The invite,
Yeah,
changing
so
the
that
meeting,
I
yeah.
don't double book.
Yeah, we'll make it that happen.
I don't know if you know it or not, but I try to make this a priority.
Absolutely. We'll send that out.
10 o'clock.
So just to kind of give you a heads of what is coming down the road, the fire chief unfortunately had some other priority.
What could that be?
Today, I know, he was supposed to talk about fees, but he disappeared on me on this one. But he's got some fees he wants to talk about, and we'll bring that back next time. Convention Center incentive evaluation, we're going to move that up a little bit. I think it was like November last year. Move that up. I'd like to have that conversation this next time around so we can get it
Excellent.
through.
Excellent.
And then the other thing, and Chad's not here, but thanks to IT, we are going to bring, hopefully in the next board meeting, the transparency module
Yes,
back to the board. Now, what I'd like to do is bring back to you guys a deeper view of it, because that'll be 2 weeks later, and we'll have an ability to drill down deeper. Because eventually, if I get my way, I'll be using that instead of the dashboard.
excellent,
So people can follow right along on the website with us.
excellent.
And that's the point. By that time, we may or may not have the budget for '23 in that same module, but Sunday is working her tail off to get that pushed in with our staff, who is our new budget analyst, and she's done a phenomenal job. They all have, but anyway, the transparency module we're very excited about. So we're working on that one. And we'll bring that back to you for a deeper dive. And that's it. That's all I got.
I'm just, every single month, I'm just more and more comforted when I can see the numbers the way we see them, see where our capital is, our available cash is.
Yeah.
See what our capital requirements are,
Yeah.
and maintaining a very healthy reserve.
Good. No, I'm glad to see that too. The one thing we are missing as part of this conversation though is that capital piece. So I'll put a time together that Kendall and Michael and I could talk. And we'll just bring back just the top projects. Here's what's going on, just kind of an update. Nothing new, just bring it up on the internet, let
Well,
people show how to use it.
Yeah, in just not many months, we're gonna be starting on the Hiawatha Heights water and paving, right? I know that's gonna be a long project,
Yeah.
but that's also gonna be a large ticket item.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
give them time to talk about it and put it in public, yeah. That's what this committee is designed to do anyways, hear that kind of update. You can
Very
push
nice.
it out.
Anybody-
Appreciate your time.
Anybody have any questions for Ben? Nope.
The chief
I
can
just
have
have a
your
comment. Thanks for clarifying what the mayor brought up about that public safety and that forecast, that note. Because there's been this, a kind of a misnomer that, hiring and we don't have budget for and things like that. And, people are kind of getting confused and going like, wait a minute, you don't have money, why are you doing it? But the reality of it is, you've already forecasted that
Yep,
in the
it's
budget.
already in there.
And it's covered and all of
Already in
that.
there.
So, yeah, I appreciate that clarity.
We put all those positions, we put them up funded January 1st, every single one of them,
Fantastic.
just to be super conservative about it.
Let me explain that a little bit, and Ralph, that's a good point, because I'm often asked about, boy, we're sure spending a lot of money, right? Where are we financially? When Ben, and I truly respect the way Ben presents these numbers to us, and what he just said is a loud statement. Fire station number 4 will have 11 personnel,
I believe that's right.
12 personnel.
12, yeah.
The building's not built yet. Ben has already plugged in the cost of 12 employees to operate that facility. So we're not it's in our budget, we're obviously not spending it, but it's
Yeah.
already planned for, yeah.
Well, and just to close that loop, we're going to be working extremely close with Haley's group over in HR for all of the people coming through, all the positions coming through. When we talk about budget, after you get the CIP put in place and all the people in place, the budget's finished. So you've got Michael and Kendall and Haley. We bring that group together, and that's everything we do for the city. And if we've got those people together talking about and on the same page moving forward, you can do anything. And we got the right people on the bus.
Wow, is it a short bus?
No, yeah, that's what my wife teases me all the time, short bus. No, it's a long
It's
bus.
my bus, my bus.
I just
I have
told
a little
him it's your
minibus.
bus, Mayor.
It's $1 million
Minivan.
bus.
Okay, well, no other comments? There's something else important that's pulling at us?
Absolutely.
It's not a secret, is it?
No, sir.
In about 35 minutes, we're going to be spending a lot of your money
Your money.
in about 35 minutes.
That's right.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
We have a motion, second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same